the 18 Strong podcast with Jeff Pellizzaro, episode number 60.
It was literally days apart of being devastated and in the dumps and clueless of where the ball was going to complete control and really just dominating a golf course in a tournament. It was pretty interesting.
Welcome to the 18 Strong podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzaro.
Hey, what's up, and welcome back to the 18 Strong podcast. I'm Jeff Pellizzaro, your host, golf fitness professional and physical therapist. And this week we've got quite a show. We have a professional golfer by the name of Adam Long on the show. And Adam is one of those guys that was battling it out at the very end of the year, played primarily the web.com this past year, was so close to getting in the top 25 money earners list and earning his PGA card for the 2016 season. And then again, very close in the Tour Championship the last several tournaments of the year, but just fell a little bit short of getting on the PGA Tour for next year. So he has very high hopes and very big goals for the year 2016. What I'm really excited about is the fact that this episode is very different from a lot of the other episodes, previous episodes that we've had. Typically, we've got coaches, we've got, some sort of an expert in a field on working with golfers. But this time we've got a golfer playing at darn near the highest level possible and is playing with the guys week in and week out, that are up and down, on the PGA Tour, on the web.com. So Adam is right there playing with these guys and has proven that he can play at that very same level. Now, in this episode, we hardly talk about fitness at all, which is a little unusual here on the 18 Strong podcast, because typically it is a fitness professional or medical professional or somebody talking about the performance aspect. But today we're going to talk with Adam about, just the daily rigors and weekly rigors of being on the tour, and what were some of his highs, some of his lows, not just over the course of the last year, but over the past 5 years playing professional golf. Adam takes us to a couple stories where he tells us what his lowest point on the golf course was and what that meant to him and what he learned from that, and then what some of the most gratifying moments on the golf course were, both back in college and last year on the web.com tour. So we get a glimpse of, what it's really like to be out there and the different levels of emotion and pressure and, how to battle through it and what he did and what his mental mindset was going into these different events. And then this episode is also pretty special to me because, I didn't know Adam really before interviewing him. I met him the day before the interview, and then we did the interview via Skype like I do all of my other interviews. But Adam's from St. Louis, grew up in St. Louis playing golf, and we've have a lot of mutual connections and friends. And, knowing Adam and kind of following his career as just a St. Louis guy, it just worked out that we started talking about him coming on the podcast, and then we started talking about him coming into my gym, Elevated Performance, and getting an evaluation and working in the off season, because he's actually got a legitimate off season this year, which is very unusual for golfers and especially guys that are playing on the tours trying to get to the PGA. But now that he's secured his web.com card, he has time to work in the off season. So over the next couple of months, Adam and I are going to be working pretty closely. He's going to be living in Jupiter, Florida primarily most of the time, but we'll be traveling back to St. Louis, and so we're going to start working on some of the off-season stuff, the strength training, the power performance, all that stuff. So it's going to be pretty cool to see this whole process develop and really, be a part of Adam's team moving into the year 2016. Just a couple things that I want to highlight, and I want to kind of make sure that you pay attention to when you're listening to this episode are, first, the couple of revelations that Adam had over the past, really actually from college and into his professional career that elevated him to the next level. It seems like there are definitely 2 points in his career that kind of mentally shifted his focus. And then just the mindset that he takes when he's on the course, which it sounds like it took a while to learn how to do this, and his philosophy of playing and who he is as a golfer. I know you guys are going to love this episode, so let's jump into it with Adam Long. Hey, what's up, Adam? Welcome to the 18 Strong podcast.
Jeff, hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming on. And for everybody out there that doesn't know Adam yet, you're going to very soon. Adam is a Web.com player, professional golfer, aspiring to be on the PGA Tour very, very soon. So, Adam, give the listeners, well, first of all, tell us a little bit about end of the year. Where did you finish up? And then we're going to go into how that whole thing works, too. And then we'll get into your background as well.
Sure. So I played this year on the Web.com tour, and I started the year with conditional status, and meaning I wasn't really sure how many tournaments I would get in at the beginning, and when I did get in, I needed to perform. I needed to play well in order to shuffle in and have full status the rest of the year. And going in with conditional status it's the second time I've done it. It's tough. You need to take advantage of your opportunities. But I was able to do that, luckily, and got off to a good start of the year, made enough money to shuffle up ahead of some guys and know that I had the rest of the year to play on the Web.com tour. So I finished the regular season number, 41, something like that on the money list. And at the end of the regular season, the top 25 move on to the PGA Tour, and then 26 through 75 are invited to the Web.com Tour Finals, which you play against basically guys on the PGA Tour who have lost their cards, numbers 126 to 200 on the PGA Tour. So basically the top Web.com guys and more the bottom PGA Tour guys meet for these four tournaments in the fall for 25 more PGA Tour cards.
So the guys that finish in the top 25 at the end of the season, which you were very close, do those guys play in the Web.com finals as well, those last 4 weeks?
Yeah, they can. They kind of have the option. They're guaranteed their PGA Tour card the following year, but the way it works is you'd rather be number 1 than number 25. They're not all the same type of cards, basically. Different status kind of drops down. So anyway, those 25 guys play those finals against themselves. And so they keep the money that they made throughout the regular season and keep their ordering, and they enter those 4 finals, and then they add that money that they made from the finals to their regular season earnings, and then they kind of reorder everyone 1 through 25 again, and that's the final 1 through 25. So yeah, they're there, but as an outsider, they were as if they weren't there because they're playing against themselves.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So those 25 guys are kind of playing a little tournament amongst themselves almost.
Exactly.
Trying to get to the top spot, which gives you better status in different tournaments.
Right.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
then the rest of us, it ended up being about 135 guys each tournament. We're in the full field. Now 25 of those already had their cards. And so that leaves about 110 guys basically playing for 25 cards.
Okay.
For new cards, because either they lost them from the PGA Tour or people like me on the web trying to gain a card. And so it ended up being about 110 guys that didn't have cards yet playing for 25 PGA Tour cards.
Okay. And like you said, those are the guys a lot of guys that were on the PGA Tour last year didn't quite make it. I know, Scott Langley, local guy, I think he finished 126, so he was in that tournament and everything with you guys. A lot of names that we would recognize on that list.
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a top field. It's like a PGA tournament.
Yeah, and the reason why it's 126 to 200 on tour, that's 75, and then also 1 through 75 on the Web.com tour were invited, but that'd be 150, except there's only 135-ish. So there's a lot of actually those guys who weren't there were guys like Ernie Els and Vijay Singh maybe, and I don't know, guys who have status otherwise or on other on European tour maybe who have come down or who didn't finish high on their money list or FedEx on the PGA Tour, but they have status in other ways, past major champions or whatever, But yeah, I mean, guys on the PGA Tour were there that you're not used to seeing, a Jonathan Bird and Jonathan Vegas and Lucas Glover, and I mean, there's some pretty big names.
Yeah, and so where did you, after the tournament and everything, where did you end up finishing?
I think overall I ended up somewhere in the 50 range, but basically I ended up about $15,000 short of a PGA Tour card, which would have been about a 12th or 13th, 14th place, something like that.
Wow.
And any of them. So, I was close, and I made all 4 of the cuts, which was an accomplishment in itself, but just didn't really capitalize on the weekends, which was probably what I left with the most disappointing. Was I was so close. And in the regular season, I also was so close. I was in the top 25 for a few weeks there in the summer and finished in the last 3 cuts of the regular season to fall back from about 30th to 40th in the regular season. And then I had this opportunity in the finals, and I was, again, so close. But
you finished around the 50 range. So what does that mean for this upcoming year? I know you've got full status on the web.com, right?
Yep, yeah. So basically everybody that was at the finals from the web.com tour, the top 75 from the regular season of the web.com tour, gets a full exempt status on the web.com tour next year, 2016.
So no Q school, which
No
I know
Q-
you and I have talked about, means a long off season, so lots of time to prepare.
Yeah. I mean, I've been going to Q school the last 4 years, so this is this is a little different to have this long of an off season, but it's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I have tons of friends going through first stage as we speak right now and battling it out, and I've been there, and it's a grueling. It's just the hardest. It's so hard.
I can't imagine the pressure. And we've had some other guys on here that have experienced Q school. I know, Mike Wellington. We had Mike Wellington on the show not too long ago, and he talked about, first of all, just some of the issues that he was dealing with off the course, but then tied into on the course. So I can imagine not having to go through that, that 3 rounds or whatever. Would you've only had to go through 2 rounds at this point?
At the top, 76 through 85 get to go to finals from the web, and then 86 to 100 get to go to second stage. If you finish outside the top 100 on the web, you have to go to first stage. So, yeah, it kind of would have depended on where I finished on that bracket.
Okay, gotcha. So, yeah, I mean, that's got to be a huge, huge weight off your shoulders.
No doubt, no doubt.
So, hey, I want to give a little bit more background about you. I know we jumped right into the web.com stuff, but most people don't know that, you're a St. Louis guy. You and I hadn't met until just yesterday. I mean, we have mutual friends and know each other and just met yesterday. But give us a little background on you growing up in St. Louis, playing golf, and then, where you went from there and how you got to where you are.
Sure. I grew up in St. Louis, born in New Orleans, but grew up in St. Louis area, went to Francis Howell High School and played on the golf team there, and had a good amateur junior golf career and was recruited by a lot of the top programs in the country. And I was verbally committed to going to Florida, but ultimately switched to Duke University in North Carolina. And it was a great choice for me. Played golf 4 years there at Duke and had an awesome time, great education, great school. Basketball was by far the highlight of it all, though.
Right.
Going to those games was unbelievable. But I had a good college career, and shortly after turned pro. After I graduated, turned pro, and started kind of the mini tour circuit, and got on the web.com tour in 2012, and then kind of played some mini tours again. And last year I played in Canada and Latin America, which are tours operated by the PGA Tour, which was a great experience. And, I liked that better than the mini tour circuit per se in the U.S. It was a really, really good experience. And then kind of ran through Q school last fall and got conditional status on the web and took advantage of that. And here I am.
Awesome. And so I know that, you went to Duke. I want to mention that I was kind of looking up some stats on you, before we got on the show here. And you were a 4-time academic All-ACC scholar, which at that time, and maybe still to this day, you're the only player in Duke history to do that, as well as 2-time All-American scholar, which you were the 5th male in Duke school history to do that. So first, just huge congratulations, and I want people to know how much of a smarty pants you are too, as far as you're not just a golfer, you got more.
I worked my butt off at school for sure. It kind of had to, and small classroom settings, and the professors didn't really care that you were an athlete or you did this or that or you were missing class for anything. I mean, they just expected you to keep up with the class, and so it was tough, and it was a lot of studying on plane rides to and from tournaments, and but yeah, I mean, I took pride in that and took pride in my schoolwork and that part of the college experience.
Yeah, I mean, Duke is obviously one of the best schools in the nation, so I mean that's a huge achievement. So when you graduated, was there ever a doubt that you were going to take the pro route? Obviously graduating with those kind of honors and those kind of grades, I'm sure you could have gone in a lot of different directions, but did you ever have a question?
Going into school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know how good I was or how good I was going to be 4 years from now. And so actually going into school, I didn't really know. That felt to me like 10 years away.
Mm-hmm.
It felt so far in the distance because I knew I was going to be there for 4 years, and at least. And but my sophomore year, it was my second coach, Odie Vincent. He had just gotten there actually from UCLA, but he had a lot of experience with really good players, had some really good teams at UCLA and Washington, and he was a good player himself. And he really kind of got me thinking about playing professionally my sophomore year in college. And I had never really given it serious thought or consideration until he kind of sat me down in the winter, I think, of my sophomore year and was like, if you want to do this, you can do this. And he made me kind of realize, like, okay, I mean, he was the first person of that, I don't know, status, I guess, or that I respected that really believed in me that I could do it, and kind of changed my mind a little bit. And that became a big focus of preparing myself for professional golf. And so when graduation came, I had already planned to have turned pro.
Okay. So when you kind of made that distinction and when he kind of mentioned that to you, what changed in your practice? I know you said your mentality changed physically and just in your daily rituals. Did anything specific change that you really made a difference?
It was probably maybe more mental than anything, because I had gone from preparing for tournaments. I mean, I had to get ready for, the tournament at Isleworth, and then a couple weeks later the tournament at Duke, and then ACCs, and things like that. And he kind of made me think bigger and a bigger picture, and not so immediate, and not care as much about the immediate results, and kind of just using these years that I had and the resources I had while I was there to prepare myself for professional golf. And I started listening to some pros more. I started kind of following professional golf a little bit more, and following friends of mine that were older who were taking it on themselves. And so I think that was probably the biggest change.
So from the year 2010 to 2015, you've made the mini tour circuits. You've played on and off the web, played in Canada. I want you to take us to a story where you kind of had what you would call, one of your lowest moments on the golf course. Could be mentally, could be physically, but take us to a specific story and what was going through your head at that time.
The first thing that comes to mind would be 2011, my first full year out of school. I had missed at first stage that previous fall at Q school, and so I was playing a full season on the eGolf Tour in North Carolina-based area, and it's now the swingthought.com tour, but at the time it was that and the Hooters Tour were the two biggest mini tours in golf. And so anyway, I was out on that tour full year. It started out okay in the year on that tour, and then in about May sometime, I was in St. Louis, and I qualified for qualified through local qualifying for the U.S. Open, so I was exempted to sectional stage now. But I went back to North Carolina, played 5 straight eGolf Tour events, and missed all those cuts. I missed 5 straight eGolf Tour cuts, and man, that was tough to go through. Here I am trying to play on the PGA Tour as my goal. I'm a year out of school now, and I've got U.S. Open qualifying coming up soon, and I can't make a cut on the eGolf Tour. And it was extremely tough and trying. I remember talking to my coach, Brian Fote, here in St. Louis at Belle Reve. I remember, calling him after rounds and just being like, I don't have a clue where the ball's going. I don't have a clue, how to fix it. And it was a really tough time. I was really struggling with it. And, on the upside of that story would be I missed a cut on Friday, traveled to Columbus, Ohio on Saturday for sectional qualifying for the U.S. Open, which would be on Monday, and practiced, played the 2 courses, and I don't really know what clicked over the weekend, but I had the best day of golf I've ever had on Monday.
Wow.
And qualified for the U.S. Open. And it was just amazing how it just, everything kind of fell together, and it was just one of those prime examples of when people say when you're playing bad, you think you're never going to play well again, and then when you play well, you think you're never going to play bad again.
Yeah.
It was a perfect example of that, and just how close in timing and proximity that was. It wasn't like a month apart. It was literally days apart of being devastated and in the dumps and clueless of where the ball was going, to complete control and really just dominating a golf course in a tournament. It was pretty interesting.
So what did you take away from that whole experience? I mean, it was such a shift in how you were playing before to playing not great to playing great again. What did you take away from that?
Just mostly that, it's even to this day that it can click at any time. So you never know when your best round's going to come. You never know when you're literally going to wake up one morning and just feel awesome. And that could be tomorrow, that could be today. And so having that still is a great thing to fall back on because, even this year, you go through tough rounds, tough tournaments, tough stretches, and just having that experience for me to look back on and remember, like, hey, just because I missed the cut this week doesn't mean I can't win next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen it time and again. You see guys like Padraig Harrington, comes out and wins the Honda last year, and he was, ranked 300th in the world or something like that. And it's like any given week, one of you guys, I mean, you're all so good. Somebody can pull it out. So absolutely. Let's switch gears. Sometimes we learn the best from those downtimes, but let's switch to a little more uplifting story and tell us, what's one of the greatest moments that you've had or most gratifying moments you've had on the course?
Two. One was in college and one was this year. Would be my first things I think about would be, so my freshman year in college, I had missed the qualifying for my first tournament on the Duke team, and just barely. It was close. I was probably the first man out. And so the team went. They didn't really play that great. And the following week, I was, bumped up and moved into the lineup. And so it was kind of like, here we go. This is September of my freshman year at Duke, a good program. And we traveled to Olympia Fields in Chicago, Illinois tournament, one of the strongest fields of the whole year. And obviously on a very demanding, tough golf course that held the U.S. Open in 2003. Mm-hmm. And so I went up there and I was really nervous. I was excited. I didn't want to let the teammates down. I wanted to kind of prove myself that I could play with these guys, prove to myself really that I was in the right position here, and I didn't belong at home. I belonged out on the road with the team. And I just played awesome. I really did. I played 3 great rounds and ended up finishing second place, actually.
Wow.
And our team won. And man, just coming home from that trip was a really eye-opening experience for me. It was very gratifying and self-fulfilling that I can play with these guys and I can compete at the highest D1 level. And as a freshman, that was a great confidence booster for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then this year was a different type of. This was more of a round. It was in Evansville, Indiana, Victoria National, in I don't know, probably May, and it was only my 3rd start on the Web.com tour of the year, and I needed to do well, in order to keep moving on, making money, and get more starts. But I traveled over there and got myself in a great position going into Sunday. I was, probably 3rd or 4th place going into Sunday, which was, a position I had never been in before. And it's one of the hardest courses, of the year that we play, if not the hardest. And, I was really nervous. I was anxious. Literally anything in the top 10 I probably would have taken going into that day, but I didn't really worry about that. I was more concerned about just doing literally the best I could on every hole. And if that was a 5, it was a 5. If it was a birdie, it was a birdie. But not really caring as much about the score and just caring that I put in all my effort, all my energy into this shot, into this hole. And I really stayed in the moment. And I had to battle through some tough stretches. I was miss-hitting irons and wedges and, getting up and down. I had to make some pretty key putts for par. I was making a 20-footer for par and getting up and down out of bunkers at left and right. And it was one of those rounds where I just kept plugging away. I shot one over, which doesn't sound great, but I ended up tied for second. And it was just a great. I was just really proud of the way I handled myself on that last day because of all the pressure, of the toughness of the conditions in the golf course. And, I took care of business, and I really was really proud of that.
Yeah, that was awesome. I remember we've always got the Golf Channel on in the gym at Elevated Performance, and I remember seeing your name up there, and I was like, oh, man, we got to pay attention to this. That's Adam from St. Louis. And And just so then we just kind of followed you throughout the weekend, and that was before we had even ever met or anything like that. But it's always cool to root for the hometown guy, and so congrats on that. And then you had another top 10 finish. I think you had another 2 more T13 and maybe a T18 as well. So you had some great finishes.
Yeah. A little later in the summer, I finished 4th in Dallas with the final round 63, like 9 under. So yeah, there's definitely some good highlights to look back on in this off season and to remember going forward.
So the whole shot by shot thing, is that something that you try to do every round, every time you go out?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a work in progress constantly. I don't know if you ever really master that, but I had a chance last fall to go and visit with Dr. Bob Rotella, the sports psychologist, in last September, and so I went to his house and met with him for a few days, and really took to heart what he had to say, and really learned a lot. And I put into practice through Q School last fall and this year, and it's really helped. And
I know I've read several of Bob's books. Is there one book in particular that you would recommend to the listeners of Bob's several, or just read them all?
No, you really got to read them all. They're different in their own sense. I travel with a few usually that kind of fall back on and have some things highlighted to go back and read through and reread, and I can't read them enough. But they're all honestly really good, and you learn something a little bit from each one, I think.
Yeah, I think every time you read them, just like any book, every time you read them, you learn something a little new, or you're ready to learn something a little different at that stage. Maybe you've gotten something down, and now you're ready to move on to a new concept or new practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you said that really kind of changed your game, and you've made some different changes. What are some of the things that you still struggle with out on the course? And this could be mentally, physically, but what are some of the things that you're consistently working on right now, where you feel like if you improve that's going to take you even higher to the next level? Yeah,
it's probably just continuing what I've the basics of what I've learned from him. And we worked on and talked about having a real philosophy of how I play. It's how Adam Long plays every time. So every time I step onto a golf course in a tournament, I'm following this philosophy of how I play, which I'd never really thought of before. And it's more of a broad. When I worked with him, we talked a lot more broadly than maybe so. Like, this is your routine. You're going to do this on your putting. Long game, you're going to look at your target and take. There's that element too, which is important. But I really needed help, kind of the bigger scale, the bigger scene, the bigger picture. And so we really worked on that, and kind of where I saw myself as a golfer and where I wanted to be. And anyway, so we kind of developed a philosophy of how I play golf. And there's several parts to it, but basically the main things are not letting anything bother or upset me when I'm out there, whether it be external or internal. Just not letting anything bother me or upset me. Just really, really trusting and believing and knowing that I can score regardless of how I'm hitting it. So it doesn't matter if the driver's off, the irons are off, you're whatever. You can find ways to score even on those days, and that's really important in professional golf in particular. No, so just having a philosophy of, one, not letting anything really bother or upset me on the golf course, whether it's external or internal, and two, knowing and understanding and trusting that I can score regardless of how I'm hitting it. It not mattering if my swing's a little off one day or another, and it looks like Jordan Spieth and Jason Day maybe are always like hitting it on all cylinders, but I promise you they're not, but they're finding ways to score. And in a course of 4 rounds, you're not going to hit it great every time, and you've got to get through those rounds. Kind of like I was saying, that final round in Indiana. I was able to score without hitting it all that great. And sometimes you got to rely on your short game and your putting and finding ways to just get the ball in the hole the best you can. And probably the overall, the most important thing is he really got me to trust and believe in going to tournaments and starting rounds and being out there to play great. Your main goal is to play great, not to not play poorly. And there's a lot of times, especially in professional golf, where there's a lot on the line, whether it be Q School right now or the finals that I just finished up, or trying to win a golf tournament. But there are many times when it's easy to try to go out there and just don't mess up. Just don't screw up. Just don't miss a shot. Don't hit in the water. Don't play bad. And that just doesn't help you. Rather than flipping the switch into, I'm here to show off. I'm here to play great. I'm here to dominate. I'm here to win. And having that mentality going into tournaments has helped me a lot.
That's interesting, because I think that that could be a big area where the pros are so separated and at a different level than the amateur players. Because, just this past weekend, we went out and we had just a fun event with a bunch of buddies. And, that's kind of the thought that typically goes through most of our heads, like, ooh, there's water on the right. I can even hear our conversations on the tee box, like, there's water on the right, water on the left. Don't go there. It's like, no, just pipe one down the middle, and changing that mindset. And we've had several people on the show talk about, that's where some of the differences come in to the guys that are great versus the guys that are just playing protective golf.
Yeah, and even just this average players or good players at country clubs and things, that sometimes they'll get thrown into kind of tough situations or tough rounds or out of their comfort zone a little bit, whether it be somebody comes into town that they're playing with that they want to impress, could be their boss, who knows. But instead, don't go into it thinking like don't play bad. Like that's obvious. We don't want to play bad, but you really need to focus on doing things to do things well and to do great. Play to play great.
And speaking of that, what would you say are your strongest points of your golf game? Where do you think, like, hey, I'm at the top level of this portion of the game?
Yeah, I don't know if I can honestly say that. I look at my game a little differently. I think I look at my game more as an all-around good game that's kind of built to last. I'm in it for the long haul, the longevity of it, and I think all my parts of my game are good and solid. I've typically been a really good ball striker, really good off the tee, hit a lot of fairways. But overall, I see myself, just being overall really good, where I don't have to necessarily depend on hitting fairways or depend on making a lot of putts or depend on chipping, or it all kind of works itself out. And I think some of the guys that we're watching now dominate. Jason Day, Rory McIlroy, and Jordan Spieth. I don't know if you would really watch them play and say they dominate one thing or another. At times they do. At times they look like they're doing one thing greater than the other. But I think their games now are really well-rounded. And, I think, there's Bubba Watson, who has his strengths, obviously. His are obvious. Dustin Johnson's are obvious. Zach Johnson's are obvious. And there's that too, but I think I fall into the other category of just being more well-rounded and all-around good.
You know what I find kind of interesting as a theme throughout our conversation here, and really through your career, just from the questions that we've had, is you've had two seemingly very impactful moments in your career. One being with your coach in college, and one being with Bob Rotella. And both of them were kind of like just mentally changing your focus on who you are as a golfer. In college, it seems like you just needed somebody to kind of say, hey, let's focus on something a little bit bigger and go towards that. And then with Bob, it was more like, hey, let's not worry about every little thing. Let's focus on who you are and what your philosophy is as a player, and let's focus around that. And it's pretty cool to see that both of those things mentally then kind of transpired into, physically you playing at your greatest level.
Yeah, very true.
That's pretty cool. All right, I've got some closing questions for you, just some quick ones before we say our goodbyes and let everybody know how to follow you on tour. First question I have is, are you a Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore fan?
Ooh, Happy Gilmore.
Ooh, kind of surprised me with that answer.
Definitely.
All right, if you had the chance to play a round of golf, ride in a cart, and just be a passive observer or whatever with anybody in the world of golf, who would it be and why? Right
now?
Past or present.
I mean, Tiger in his prime. I mean, I'm a Tiger Woods golf fan. He inspired me when I was young, and I think what he did for the game of golf is unbelievable. And we are starting to forget how ridiculously dominating he was in his prime. I mean, winning over 5 tournaments 10 times in his career it's unheard of. And anyway, he just played the game like nobody had ever played it before. So I'd probably go back to those early 2000s and just really, watch him and observe and try to learn as much as I could.
Awesome. It is a shame that, we're seeing him kind of fall. And I would love for my son to be able to see, at least if not Tiger, somebody like Tiger that was just, it was amazing to watch him and tune in every Sunday. And it was like just to see what he was going to do.
Yeah.
All right, next question. When you first heard the term 18 Strong, or you saw 18 Strong on your buddy Justin Barget's T-shirt, what initially went through your head?
I thought it was a cool name, first of all. It was a cool look, cool logo, and it was just interesting because I didn't know, strong. I didn't know if that was a fitness thing or even a mentally strong thing, and turns out it's both. But I was interested.
Awesome. And what has you most excited for this next upcoming year, this off season, everything that you've got going on? You had a great year last year, propelling you forward. What has you most jazzed up?
Just the opportunity to know that I have full status on the web.com tour. There's no Monday qualifying. There's no Q school. And I can really focus on a goal that I don't think I've ever had before, which would be literally winning and being on the PGA Tour. I'm that close now. And before it was like, am I going to, get into tournaments? I need to play well just to finish in the top 25 to get in next week, or to make enough money to extend my season out on this tour, or things like that. And now it's literally just I want to be the best I can be next year. And I have 3 months here to really focus on myself and my game. And, I'm going to be working a lot on my own game and working on every part of the game, and just making sure that it's sharp, ready to go when the season starts, as well as working with you on some physical fitness things and getting myself back into top condition before the season starts.
Fantastic. And I can't wait to start our off-season program and kind of see where the progressions happen and go from there. What last pieces of advice do you have for the 18 Strong listeners before we say our goodbyes?
I don't know. Keep working at it. Keep learning. It's amazing how much there is out there, and how much good information there is. If you find something that works, stick with it. Don't search for something that doesn't need to be fixed. We're not, for most golfers, you're not trying to be the best ever. You're trying to score, and you're trying to have fun with the game, and just keep learning and keep having fun with it.
All right, I have to go into a little caveat after that answer, because you and I were talking yesterday about when you go and work with Brian, your swing coach, and kind of what the focus is on your instruction and things like that. I find that most golfers, when they go to a golf instructor, they're looking to find something wrong with their swing to fix. Mm-hmm. But you had a little bit of a different mentality, and so if you could just kind of expand on how it is that you guys work together. Yeah,
I've been working with Brian Fote out there at Belle Reve for since I was 9 years old, so pretty long time, 19 years, I guess. So, 19 years, pretty long time, and he's seen me at my best, he's seen me at my worst, but now it's it's maintaining kind of what I have, and I went to him yesterday, and I wasn't necessarily looking for anything. I knew I'd been playing well, but we looked at the full swing on tape, slowed it down, looked at all the lines and each checkpoint that we have, and it all looked really, really good. There's a few things that I've always done with my golf swing that I kind of always, it'll be my swing. That's part of my swing, though. I'm not trying to get rid of that to look like somebody else. Mm-hmm. Everybody looks different when they swing. They just do, and I'm okay with that. But definitely managing some of the things, that some of my tendencies is always a thing we need to look at. But I don't want to knock down the swing into tiny little fragments and try to perfect it by any means, because I'm a big fan of playing out there and playing the game and the sport and getting the ball in the hole, and not really trying to play a perfect swing. We're playing golf. We're not playing golf swing.
Right. I love that. I thought that was so important to share with the audience, so I had to jump in there. Mm-hmm. All right, man, where can the audience find you, and then what's kind of the best way for them to follow your career?
I'm working on a website right now with through web.com, and so hopefully that'll be up before too long. Otherwise, A Long Shot on Twitter, Adam Long on Facebook. That's about it, really.
Cool. And I'll link all that stuff up so they know where keep tabs on you. And, of course, at 18 Strong and Elevated Performance, we'll be posting out everything that's going on with you and when you win your first PGA tournament.
Now you're talking.
Nice. All right, man. Thanks.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Since this interview with Adam, we've actually had a couple chances to work together, go through an evaluation, go through a little bit of program design and some training stuff. And it's going to be really cool to follow Adam this year and be a part of his team and help him with a couple physical-related things that, we think can really kind of tighten up some spots in the game and really make his body work as well as possible so he can continue the great golf that he's playing. A couple things that I would love to point out from the episode are just, the idea of having a philosophy about how you play the game. How do you approach the game? What defines your game and you as a golfer out on the course? And sticking to that, knowing that that's your strong suit. That's who you come back to. Maybe it's that you're going to gut it out and you're going to grind for a full 18 holes, or you're the guy that, might get in a sticky situation, but you're able to get yourself out, or, maybe you rely on your putting, whatever it is. Figure out who you are as a golfer, who you want to be as a golfer, even better, and then work towards that or utilize that to know that you have something to fall back on when you're on the course. And trust and believe that you're out there to play great, not that you're just out there to not play bad. All right, I want to give a quick shout out to the guys and girls over at True Linkswear, which you may recognize as the shoes worn by several tour players. It was a company started by Ryan Moore, but they are supporting the 18 Strong podcast and have officially made me an ambassador for their gear, their shoes, and simply to help support and promote their brand. And they in turn are also going to be supporting 18 Strong, the 18 Strong podcast. So if you haven't seen their stuff or haven't heard of them yet, go ahead and check out their website at truelinkswear.com, and you'll see all their shoes, some of the gear that they have, the apparel, the hats, the gloves, all that cool stuff. And I'm sure you'll be hearing a little bit more about them on the podcast, as I've been wearing their shoes now for the last several rounds of golf that I've played and have loved them. And as always, I thank you for being a supporter of the 18 Strong podcast. Listen to the shows every week. If you are new to the podcast, by all means, go over to 18strong.com. You can find our videos on our website, on the homepage, on the tab there, as well as all the previous podcast episodes, which we are now up to episode number 60. And if you are listening to the show, you love the show, and you haven't subscribed to it on iTunes or left a rating or review, I would definitely appreciate that, as it helps us get the word out on 18 Strong and helping you play better golf. So once again, thank you guys. Don't forget, train hard, practice smart, play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.